They're now saying our liberties, our freedoms are in the target, are in the spotlight, give them up. Here to give us the Hollywood perspective is my good buddy who knows all about the globalists, Joe Rogan. He, of course, was one of the top guys on the popular syndicated show News Radio, and now is the host of Fear Factor with all the stunts, #1 rated show on television. And I was honored with Kevin Booth, who I'm making a film with Joe, told us he wanted to come on. I am just really excited about having Joe Rogan on. Joe, it's good to talk to you.
Hey, Alex, what's going on, man?
Well, Kevin told me you were crying. I can't imagine the Taekwondo world champion crying, but what does this mean to you, Joe Rogan?
Well, you know, I mean, I guess it means the same thing it means to everybody. It's really the end of innocence for this country. I mean, the first time we've ever had, like, a real terrorist attack on civilians, and I think everybody, me included, is pretty freaked out.
Joe, you know I was predicting this, telling you all about it.
Well, you know, you do predict that the government is doing these things, but, I mean, you don't believe that there's people in other countries that hate us?
Oh, I know there are, but I know this. MSNBC, Bin Laden comes home to roost. His CIA ties are only the beginning of the story, MSNBC.
Well, I mean, he supposedly had CIA ties when he was working for the CIA, but that doesn't mean that he didn't, like, get angry when he was working with the CIA and decided that's when he decided to hate America.
Well, now they're saying it could be Iraq.
Assuming that he's still with the CIA is pretty ridiculous.
No, I hear you. Now they're saying it could be Iraq. They're saying that it could be anybody. It could be Iran. My question is, why didn't we take Baghdad in 1991?
Well, you know, I mean, assuming that's assuming that this has anything to do with that, you know. I don't think the Middle East acts as one collective consciousness, so you can't really assume that. You know, we don't even know it was the Middle East. We have no idea right now, right? What do we know?
We don't know, but they are out there saying Middle East. And
well, that's what they did with Timothy McVeigh, too. That's what they did with Oklahoma City, don't you remember? Right after it happened, everybody was saying, you know, Middle East guys. And that's exactly what they're doing now.
Well, I know this. They did arrest some Middle Easterners with bomb-making components in London and then released them who had been flying out of Oklahoma City. Joe Rogan, again, host of the #1 syndicated show right now, the Fear Factor. How did this affect you this morning when you first saw it developing?
Well, I actually found out about it because of our friend Kevin. Kevin called me at 7 o'clock and woke me up and left a message on my machine, and then I got up and turned on the news.
And that's 7 o'clock Pacific.
Yeah, 7 o'clock Pacific. And it's just, it's staggering, you know? It's mind-blowing. Like, you know it happened and you see it on television, but you want to watch it over and over again because you can't believe it's real.
It's like Independence Day.
It's exactly like that. It's like, yeah, it's a Hollywood movie that you can't believe. You watch it and you go, well, that would never happen. But when you see a jet and then another jet slam into the World Trade Center and then see it collapse, it's insane.
Minus the flying saucers, it is Independence Day.
It is. It's very close to it. It's just staggering, you know. It's just, it's mind-blowing. I think today the world changed for everybody.
What are your friends out in Hollywood saying about all this?
You know, people are freaking out. I mean, there's a bunch of people that take the retard approach. It's like, hey, let's bomb everybody. You know, there's always going to be that, right? You know, and then there's the racist approach where people assume that everybody of Middle Eastern descent is responsible for this, and you hear a lot of, you know, racial slurs, and you hear it everywhere from all sorts of different people.
Yeah, I've been hearing camel jockeys and all those terms on mainstream radio.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've heard sand donkey. I've heard everything. I've heard, you know. Like people are always going to blame an entire race for the acts of a few individuals or even many individuals. Now, you know what I think. There's only 3 types of people in the world. There's morons, not, you know, jerks, and then people you can hang out with. Keep it radio clean. And I don't believe in, you know, I don't believe that we can just point at an entire race of people or an entire religion, the Muslims, and say that they are responsible for this. I don't know who's responsible, and it's sick and it's twisted, and it's just sad that the world is this way.
Well, the Afghans, the Pakistans, the Iranians, and the Palestinian leader, Yasser Arafat, the snail, and that guy is bad, they're up there saying, we didn't do this, and obviously they don't want to get blamed for it. They wouldn't want to do this because they'll get their country turned into a glass parking lot. Joe, you're a smart guy. How in the world could an independent group hijack 4 planes and do this with such incredible precision?
Well, I don't know. I mean, but to point out the people taking credit for it, one of the things that, you know, the top terrorist agencies always say is the people who take credit for it are usually not the people who did it. And the people that deny it are usually the people that are responsible.
Joe, what about the EU run by the Germans? They're rolling out their new currency. Stock markets were already crashing globally. The EU was up against the dollar. Everything is about currency speculation. A lot of the evidence I'm getting from my sources say this could be an EU move, and look how they attacked our very financial center to destroy the dollar.
You think that, wait a minute, let me get this straight. You think that this was Europe attacking America to destroy our economy?
I know that in Davos, Switzerland, 8 months ago, they announced that they were going to be preeminent. The dollar was going down, and there's been a global fight going on in the news analysis between the two currencies.
I think, until we have any evidence of who did this, anything else is just irresponsible speculation.
Joe, my point is we have to ask who is behind this. You talk about irresponsible speculation. Look at the mainstream media. They're out there saying 100 different people did it.
Well, I haven't heard anybody say that any one person did it. I've heard that Osama bin Laden is suspected. That's the only thing I've heard. But
they've said Iran, they've said Afghanistan, they've said Pakistan. Well, Joe, here's the point. They're telling us give up our rights now. We're going to have to, give up some of our liberties for security.
What are they saying, though, as far as that? Okay, I know that's always your big point. I think that was your point about Oklahoma City. You also said that they were.
Joe, the borders are wide open. The Chinese military has the Panama Canal. That's in the news. Those are the real threats, not the American people, not Joe's shotgun.
Well, what do you think that they're trying to accomplish? And you have this thing in your mind that there's a grand scheme and a grand plan. But what do you think they're trying to accomplish with it?
Why did Hitler burn the Reichstag? He'd been elected chancellor. He wanted to abolish the presidency and become Fuhrer. Why did Nero burn Rome? Blame it on the Christians.
Okay. I see where you're going with this, but look,
it's
blaming anybody for anything without any evidence is pretty much just it's irresponsible speculation. I mean, we don't know yet, and I don't know if we're ever going to know the real story. Like, who knows if we're ever going to find out the real story about the plane that crashed in Pittsburgh. I've heard many reports of all over the Internet and all over the news that there was people saying that jets were following the plane, that they heard a big explosion, that it was shot down in the sky. But do you think they're going to tell us? I mean, how are we going to know? Is the mainstream media ever going to know?
Well, I don't think these terrorists would waste their lives crashing into the forest. I'm frankly glad it looks like they did shoot down that plane outside Pittsburgh.
Well, yeah, I can't say I'm glad they did it, but, if it cost fewer lives, then I guess it was the right thing to do.
Well, Joe, I'm all up front. I mean, the communists have killed 200 million people, but the colleges tell you they're cool. So I care about human life, but,
I don't think colleges tell you communists are cool. I think they tell you that the idea of socialism is cool because socialism is what, a lot of, educational people want. They want us to share wealth and share, I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's the ideal that they support, not communists itself, and not, ruthless communist dictatorships and what they do to their people. Like
China.
They
called him Uncle Joe Stalin into the 1950s in the newspapers.
Yeah, well.
Joe, let me read you something here, and I really appreciate you coming on, and I want to hear your take on this. Because you're kind of, in the middle of the road just watching and seeing what's developing. I was predicting this Friday night, and we have the tapes posted on my website. I had James Bamford, former 2020 executive on, different network from you, you're NBC. But it says, new book on NSA sheds light on secrets, U.S. terror plan called Cuban Invasion Pretext by Scott Shane and Tom Bowman. It says here, this is the Baltimore Sun, also New York Times. They wanted to, quote, casualty list, that means numbers of dead, in U.S. newspapers would cause a helpful wave of indignation. They wanted to blow up passenger airliners, attack the Marines at Guantanamo, using Army dressed up as Cubans as a pretext to invade Cuba. Now, Kennedy said no. 6 months later, his head was Sloppy Joe's. Joe, how do you respond to that? I know you're a web guy. You can read the stories and hear the clips. Well,
I've heard any million number of different theories on why and how Kennedy was assassinated and by who. And, I suspect, one of them out there is true. I suspect the government probably had something to do with it. But as far as, that, I mean...
But, Joe, not even the Kennedy thing. It's confirmed NSA documents. The Joint Chiefs of Staff signed on to it. Secretary of Defense
signed on. But it's confirmed by who? Who confirmed this?
Oh, it was released by the Library of Congress. This is Baltimore Sun right here. They wanted to blow up airlines to bring...
I would have to read that before I could comment on it. And
Joe, are you at your computer?
Look, if that's what our government is about, obviously we're in a big problem, and this is just the beginning of it. You know, I find it hard to believe that the idea is it because of the idea being that we're overpopulated. I mean, what does the government have to?
Oh, that's really on target. Joe, I know you're a busy guy, but I want to give you a chance during the break to go to my website. It's right there on the main page.
Okay.
Can you punch up Infowars.com and read the Baltimore story?
Okay, we'll do that right now.
Joe, will you stay with us?
Sure.
All right. I love Joe Rogan. This guy is a dynamic, powerful personality, and he's Mr. Karate Champion. And I count myself lucky to be friends with him. But we have some heated arguments, and he's being nice to me on the air. I just want to say that right now because he beats me upside the head in private arguments. We'll be right back, folks. All right, we're back live. I know the phones are loaded. We're going to get to you, but we got Joe Rogan, the star of News Radio and Fear Factor, joining us, my good buddy, and he knows all about corruption in government and can argue with the best of them. Joe, did you get a chance to read that Baltimore Sun story?
Yeah, Alex, I did. This story is out by that guy who wrote the Bamford, the guy who wrote the book, The Puzzle Box. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Puzzle Palace, is that what it is?
Wow, yeah, you know about that.
Yeah, I'd read about that guy, but apparently that's a very controversial book, isn't it?
Well, it's just about the NSA. Now it's not. When he wrote it in '86, it was, and now we know the echelons listening to everybody. They admitted, and now he's written Body of Secrets. But we have these documents from the Library of Congress. But look, all that aside, what does this do for our image-oriented country? What actions might Hollywood take to help prop things up?
I don't think Hollywood ever should be in the position to take any actions whatsoever. Hollywood is about entertainment and making money. You know, Hollywood trying to prop things up, I think, is pretty ridiculous.
But they're kind of doing that. You know, they're taking a lot of federal money on some of these Army scripts and stuff.
Are they really?
Oh, yeah. That was
movies like Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, exactly.
They take Army money in what way?
All the free equipment, and then the Army tells them how to write the script and what to do and what to take out.
Well, you know what? I highly doubt the Army tells them what to do and what to take out. I think they do probably tell them that they can't have the Army or the military, viewed in a poor way, like displayed in a poor way. But I highly doubt they give them money. For them, it's also good publicity, though. You have to realize, I mean, for recruitment, to watch a movie like Pearl Harbor where the kids join the Navy and become heroes, you know, for an impressionable young kid, now, that might be just the push that they need to get them into the armed services. Yeah,
it created a glut of people wanting to fly F-14s when Tom Cruise made Top Gun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the military is well aware of that. I did a flight with the Blue Angels once, and one of the things that they were really concerned with is that I display this in a positive light when I talk about it in the news and the media, and that it would help recruitment. That's how they look at it.
I know you think it's stupid. That former Senator John DeCamp is suing the makers of Doom for what happened at Columbine. And I don't want the government to get into the business of regulating speech and ideas because it'll be my speech they regulate, and I have to defend your right for them to defend my right.
Right.
But did you see the second lone gunman where the government takes over a 747 to create martial law and tries to fly it into the World Trade Center? Because I have a link to Fox Television with the script on Infowars.com.
No, I didn't see that. I doubt that has anything to do with this, though.
Well, I know that 101 of terrorism is not to hype it. I don't even blame things like the lone gunman. What about the media telling us every day, though, that we're wide open to terrorism and then how powerful terrorists are? Doesn't that accentuate their power?
Well, you know what, Alex? The media does what it does just to get ratings. I mean, the idea that the media is all about informing us is pretty much an illusion. And what the media is there for, it's a business to make money. And as soon as it falters in any way, shape, or form, they will adjust it and correct it and put it back in a position to make money. Whether that means hiring attractive people to work as news anchors or sprucing up the soundtrack or doing whatever the hell they have to do, they're there to get ratings. Now,
okay.
I mean, look at what's going on with shark attacks. There's less shark attacks this year than any other year before, but they've locked onto it as a point of focus, and now they talk about it constantly.
And then suddenly you see HBO re-airing Jaws every night.
Right. It's all about what is working. Right now, what is working is shark attacks. Today, what is working is terrorist attacks. And whatever is working is whatever they will use. And make no mistake about it, that's what the media is. The media is a business. The idea that people have that the media is controlled by some secret government agencies and it's all just propaganda, to ensure that people get conform to the police state, that's ridiculous. I know all the people behind these shows. They don't care about anything but money. They want ratings. They want 18 to 49. That's what they want. People who are 18 years old to 49. And whatever gets them, that's what will be on.
Yeah, but Joe, you do Mad TV and News Radio and host Fear Factor, the #1 show. A lot of those media anchors may not say it to your face, but they're Council on Foreign Relations members. They go off at the Bilderberg Group meetings that are now being publicized. They're calling for world government.
You mean the people that are in charge, like people in charge of CNN and places like that?
Well, we know Ted Turner gave $1 billion to the UN. I mean, come on.
Well, I think Ted Turner gives a lot of money out for tax purposes. You know, I think it probably helps him give money out.
Joe, I mean, I talk to you. You talk a lot about the New World Order when we talk in person. But, are you saying this government...
No, look, I'm not saying that I don't believe in the New World Order. I don't... Excuse me, sorry, I got a little cough. And I'm not saying that I don't believe that the government has its hand in everything that goes on all over the world. And I'm not saying that I don't think that Osama bin Laden probably did at one point in time work as an employee or, hired out by the CIA. It's all very possible. I don't know whether or not it's true, and it's all very possible. And
Joe,
I know that the government does a lot of very questionable things to keep us in line.
Joe, I've been sitting here jousting with you and enjoying it. Can you do one more quick segment before I get to these calls?
Absolutely,
because
sure.
I want to hear what Joe Rogan came on the air to talk about, and I want to hear what you have to say about this and who you speculate may be involved. We'll get that from Joe Rogan, host of Fear Factor, #1 show, and then your calls. We're back live. We're talking to Joe Rogan. He is, of course, the #1 host right now on the show Fear Factor. And I'm told maybe even hosting 2 shows at one time, though I'm not supposed to talk about that. Heard about it from the Wicked Kevin. And we've got a bunch of callers. I know you've been holding. We're going to get to you, and I got a ton of news, the latest developments. Now up to 4 or 5 buildings that blew up and turned into rubble. 2 buildings hit by 2 different planes. Pentagon attacked. Large passenger jet crashed into it. Another one went down somehow on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, PA. Joe, just for you, because we're all about the documentation, I'm going to post stories about the Justice Department writing scripts for Law and Order.
Really?
Yes.
And where did this come from?
Oh, ABC, NBC, MSN.
ABC and NBC have admitted that the Justice Department writes scripts for Law and Order?
Yeah, see, you're out
why
there.
Why Law and Order?
Do what?
Why Law and Order?
A bunch of those
shows.
shows.
Has nothing to do with keeping people in line or, the
Oh, yeah, showing you phony
order.
court proceedings where the judge is the boss and violates the Constitution. Look, I didn't write it. I mean, they did.
Okay, well, I would be more than happy to read it, but obviously I can't comment on it until I read it. I do know people who run television shows. I know a lot of people who run a lot of the top-rated shows. I know the guy who invented Who Wants to Marry a Multimillionaire and all these other crazy shows that are on television. And despite what people think of the motives of all these people putting these shows on for, larger, grander, eviler reasons, or evil reasons, rather, these people just are after rating.
Well, Joe, I understand.
I can see it from this side.
I understand they sit around and think, what will sell, what will people buy?
That's all they do. That's literally all they do.
But
and then they bring them to the people who run the networks who I've also met. None of these people are evil. None of these people are working for the government. They're all hustlers. They're all putting things in front of you that they think you'll buy. It's a guy walking on the street, hey, man, you want to buy a watch? That's what a network executive is. It's just in a grander scale. It's sitcoms, it's variety shows, it's reality shows, whatever it is, it's just there to get your attention and to get your money. They're just there so you'll tune in and buy a Toyota truck or, Tide detergent. That's what it's there for. That's all it's there for. So all this crazy notion that the government is, using us like puppets through the media is ridiculous. I'm deep inside the media, okay?
Joe, just because
I know
you did
exactly what goes on. I know who these people are. I know.
I'm going to start emailing you the stories.
Okay, but I'm telling you, the sources of these stories are very suspect. I don't necessarily believe them. And I think they sound like a ridiculous notion,
okay,
and I don't think people would deny
Henry
it.
Kissinger and others, and I have the news stories here, were on TV tonight saying we need to give up our liberties for security. Do you agree that we should give up our liberties?
Who was on TV tonight?
Oh, Henry Kissinger, former governor of, still the governor.
Talking about giving up what liberties, though? What are we talking about?
Well, we need to go through checkpoints, show our papers, all of that. Joe, you know that stinks to high heaven.
Well, I do think it stinks to high heaven, but you know what? When there are people like people who live in Palestine who raise their children in schools, and there's a sign in the school, and I've seen this, there's a photograph sign in the school that in, whatever their language is, it said, today's children are tomorrow's holy martyrs.
Yeah, but Joe, I thought you just said we shouldn't demonize them. We don't know if they did it yet.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying if they did it or if anybody does it, but I'm saying people with that kind of conviction, the kind of conviction to raise your child to think that it's a fantastic thing to be a holy martyr is a scary thing.
Well, Joe,
those people have see the people in this country that use religion, like world leaders that use religion in this country, or rather politicians who do, they use it as a tool. They manipulate people. We all know. You know, they say,
no, Joe, there's no
manipulation. And then they go off and they have adulterous affairs.
I know these politicians.
I know you do, but what I'm saying
there's no motives. They're not corrupt. I know these politicians.
That's what I'm saying, Alex.
They're
good.
I'm saying
is these are guys that are living the life. They don't have conviction in their beliefs.
Hey, I know George Bush
and the Islamic terrorists.
George Bush.
Those guys have full conviction and they are ready to die. You know why? Because they live in a sandbox. Life sucks when you live in a sandbox. There's nothing over there. But they're told that if they kill themselves and they become a martyr, they get the pleasure of many, many virgins.
They go to Valhalla,
They go to Allah. They believe that, man, because they have to believe that because life sucks over there.
Joe,
no freedom, and those people are very, very dangerous people.
Joe,
I absolutely believe that.
The point I'm trying to make here is, you just said that politicians are corrupt, and then earlier you said don't bash the Arabs saying they did it, and then you're talking about
I'm just saying look, I'm not bashing the Arabs, saying that they did it. I am just saying that they grow up, the Palestinian children that I saw in this news special grow up in a very sick environment, and they are raised to think that killing people and killing yourself in the process is a holy thing.
Okay, Joe, you've said it to me. You're against, this out-of-control gun control.
I'm absolutely against out-of-control gun control, because you know what? And the good people should have guns, too. If stupid people have guns and scary people and criminals have guns, and you take them away from good people, it's the old cliche. You take away the guns, and only bad people have guns. That's absolutely the case. And you know what? Guns are like anything else. You could kill someone with a car. Taking away a gun does not keep people from killing people. You're always going to have knives for food and to eat. You're always going to have tools to dig with.
Okay, Joe, if Hollywood isn't about manipulating perception, why are they so outrageously against the Second Amendment and peddling misinformation?
What do you mean?
Come on, all of them. They're just up there, just out of control, 24/7, turning your guns.
Hollywood is not about misinformation. Hollywood is about tricking you. Hollywood is about misinformation when it comes to relationships, like how rosy and perfect they are for Father Knows Best people. You know why? Because when people come home from a day that sucks, when they work a hard day's work and they come home and they have a beer, they don't want to see depressing things. They want to see utopia.
Joe, you said yourself to me in Austin, we are one season away from the Running Man.
I said 3 seasons, and I still believe that a show like that is possible. And you know what? Another thing I said a few terrorist acts against the United States or maybe a war to lower people's value of what human life is all it'll take before we become desensitized to the point where we can see people die on TV. I absolutely believe that.
Desensitization. Now we're talking, Joe.
Well, you know what? I think that's also a product of letting people have the Internet as a boundless, freedom of speech, almost like pirate radio for the whole world, which is how I view the Internet. On the Internet, everybody can say anything whenever they want, put up a website with graphic images, with crazy movies. They can do anything, and they're really basically broadcasting it to the entire world, but they have no regulation whatsoever.
Again, we're talking to Joe Rogan, and he, of course, was a popular character on News Radio, and, of course, the host of the #1 NBC show, #1 show, period, Fear Factor, which is going into at least 2 more seasons. He may be hosting other shows on top of it. And, Joe, I can't wait till your that film that you guys are making premieres, and I hope you come for Austin for one of the premieres. All I can say to all of this is I know you're a smart guy. I know you know about the New World Order. You're doing very well in this whole system, and I'm not even saying – your show is bad compared to all the rest, and it's your First Amendment right, people's right to watch it or turn it off. So I don't get into all of that stuff, but you don't have to defend this system that is trying to trample our rights, this news media that's conditioning us to give up our liberties for security. It's all in the news wires.
What liberties do you think that they're asking us for?
Listen, Joe, I got video of military checkpoints on I-35 in Texas.
Isn't this what you thought? I understand that, but isn't this what you thought about the Oklahoma City thing, too? You thought that was rigged in order to take our liberties away, too?
Joe, all I know is I've driven through military checkpoints where they're pulling housewives out of their cars.
Did you say that? You said that you told me, do you think that Oklahoma City was staged by the government, that they knew about it in advance, and they let it go on because they wanted to take away American liberties?
Take the World Trade Center bombing, the first one in '93. They trained the bomber. They gave him the bombing materials. The informant
what has changed? What liberties have we lost since then?
Oh,
what have they accomplished by this tremendous loss in human lives?
Let me answer your question.
City and in the World Trade Center. If you're saying that they let that be accomplished, what have they gained from this tremendous loss?
Let me answer your question. We now have FEMA command centers, underground bunkers in every city. We have face scanning cameras going up, run by Lockheed Martin defense contractors. We have the Anti-Terrorism Effective Death Penalty Act passed, 60 new ways, reasons to execute us.
Martin also they have a division that has traffic devices.
Yeah.
They also have those cameras to take pictures of you if you go across red lights.
And they were just found to be unconstitutional because they were rigging them, and you didn't even have a trial. You just were sent a ticket by the defense contractor.
Well,
I know, San Diego.
The reason being is that they were getting paid per ticket, so they shortened the amount of yellow time.
I understand that, Joe. We've had Dick Armey's office on.
It's a business. I'm saying that is...
I've shown you we have lost a lot of freedoms, Joe. In 100 school districts, kids are thumb scanned to get their school lunches, training them for the cashless society.
Thumb scanned in order to get their lunches. Well,
yeah, biometrics.
You're talking about something that I'm not aware of, so I can't comment on it. And as far as thumb scanning, I mean, look, if there is really a threat to this government or really a threat to this society outside of the United States, I think we have to protect ourselves from it. I think the government has to protect us from it. Now, I think the real question that you have and the question that I have is this a real threat or is this a manipulation by the government? I mean, the people that do think the New World Order exists, they basically think that the United States controls the strings for every country and, every religious group and every, different faction all across the world. Now, if you really...
Well, no, they don't think the U.S., Joe... They don't think the U.S. does. It's the IMF and World Bank and Federal Reserve and the financial systems that get all these countries in debt.
Obviously, because the U.S. has the most military might, the U.S. has the most power. He with the biggest guns is the one that calls the story.
Yeah, but I don't even say it's our government. It's the elements that are in there running, and I look at the evidence every day, Joe. Look, you were all angry about this. Your take on it, Joe Rogan wanted to vent. I'm glad to have you here on the show, bud. What was it?
My take on it really right now, Alex, to be honest with you, is it's a horrible tragedy. I feel for everyone who was there, everyone who had family that was there, everyone on board the planes and family, the people on board the planes. I don't know who did it. I'm shocked and I'm freaked out, and I sincerely hope that this isn't an end to personal liberties that we all enjoy. I do, however, think that they should be a lot better in checking at the airport. I do, however, think that they should probably even have armed security on the airport like they have in Israel.
Well, that's the difference. Chucky Schumer supports the senator taking our money to buy Israeli troops M16s, which is fine, okay, and arming the teachers in the schools, and then the terrorism goes down. But he supports complete disarmament, that's his own statements, of the American people. They said back in the 1980s with all the hijackings, put an armored bulkhead door on the cockpit so that the people from the passengers area can't get in there. Why didn't they do that, Joe? And look, they're going to leave our southern border wide open. They're going to give the Chinese military Panama Canal, which happened 2 years ago, and they're going to tell you and I that we have to give up our right for security. They're doing it right now on the news.
Well, you know what, Alex? They're never going to take guns away because, first of all, people are always going to be able to hunt, and you're always going to be able to have rifles. That's just a fact. They're never going to take your rifles and your shotguns.
They did it in England and Australia. They never thought it would happen there.
In England and Australia, they were never allowed to have in the first place, and they still are allowed to have rifles.
That is not true. They could have automatic weapons in Australia.
I don't know about Australia.
And their crime rate has now tripled since they took the guns, which you agree with.
It's always going to be that way. Look, criminals, they're not going to pay attention. Oh, I won't get a gun now because it's the law. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I agree.
Look, I have guns myself, and I support law-abiding citizens' use of guns. I support people who hunt for food. I'm a meat eater myself. I've been hunting. I've been fishing a bunch of times. Nothing wrong with guns.
But it's about defense against tyranny. It's about defense against tyranny.
Well, you know what? Taking guns is not going to solve that. I absolutely agree with you.
Joe?
I think, at this point in time, we're walking a very slippery slope with trying to protect ourselves and, trying to make sure that the government doesn't take personal freedoms away from us while we're protecting ourselves.
Joe, I agree with you, but let's take Santa Clarita. 2 weeks ago, 4 East German APCs go in. I have the photos and the video from the L.A. Times. They're firing M60 machine guns into the wrong houses. I mean, that is not America, guys in black uniforms and black APCs.
Not. It's Germany. That's what you just said, right?
Do what, sir?
You said it was Germany?
They were driving East German APCs.
And this happened in Germany?
No, this happened just north of L.A. You heard about it.
No, I didn't.
The guy's house burning down, the APCs, the shootout.
Well, I mean, so what are you saying? You're saying that this guy has military equipment?
No, the police. It's L.A. Times. 4 black East German APCs that used to oppress the East German people were bought a few years ago. They're in the neighborhood shooting up the wrong houses, going nuts. It turns out they shot their own officers and then tried to frame this guy they killed with it. That's in the L.A. Times.
Well, I didn't read that, and I don't know what that story's about, but what does that have to do with, the government taking away our liberties by blowing up gigantic buildings and killing possibly tens of thousands
Well,
of
come
people?
back to Austin, Joe, and when you do, I'll take you downtown and show you lines of black APCs and face-scanning cameras.
Well, you know what? I believe that they do have stuff like that in use, but I don't know for a fact that isn't just to protect us from criminals. I haven't seen any arguments that that's used to take our personal liberties away. I have seen arguments, saying that they have caught people with these. Now, I don't know what's propaganda and what's true. Maybe I can read more about it and we can have a more informed debate. But
okay, Joe,
I don't necessarily think it's bad if you're not a bad person. If the society runs rampant with criminals and they can't find out who they are, and they have some detection device where they can find a dangerous criminal before he robs and kills my mother, I'm all in favor of putting that out there. You know why? Because if they scan my face and put it out there, I don't do anything, so they're not going to get anything.
You don't have anything to hide.
I don't have anything to hide.
We've heard that before, Joe. Come on.
Well, you know what? Look, if the government wanted to plant something on me and send me up the river for something I didn't commit, I think they could do it no matter what. I don't think they need face scanning to do it.
It treats us as if we're guilty.
They have a picture of your face.
It treats us as if we're guilty.
They couldn't do it any other way.
But it treats us as if we're guilty until proven innocent. Joe, last question.
Taking a photograph of us does not treat you as guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, it scans all your
of you. That's
faces into the database. But Joe,
it scrutinizes you, but how is that different from having cops on corners looking at you?
Yeah, it's a big difference. Joe, let's talk about this. If they find out who did this, first off, who do you think may have done it? And then number two, if they find out who did it, what should be done?
You know what? I wouldn't even try to guess who has done it. I'm sure there are many countries, and I know they are, that are enemies of the United States of America. We're the fat cats with all the money and, Playboy Playmates and all that good stuff, and that's how they look at us. And I'm sure they hate us in more ways than one. They hate our lifestyle, they hate our religion, they hate all sorts of things. I wouldn't guess who out of all those people would do it. What I think is important right now is that, one of the things that I've noticed today, walking around and talking to people, is that so many people are friendlier today. They're more humble. There's like a sense of humanity today. People are smiling at people they weren't. They're opening doors for people. They're being friendly.
Coming together under the New World Order?
No, I'm not saying coming together. I'm saying recognizing that we're all people, and sometimes we take that for granted. And sometimes it takes a tragedy for people to come together and drop all the BS that motivates us in life.
I hear you.
Drop
just
all
like
the jealousy and all the stupid stuff. Something like this puts things in perspective, and you realize that really we're just a bunch of people hanging out and living together.
But just like Pearl Harbor, that's now on the Discovery Channel with the actual communiques, been in the newspaper, that the government allowed the Japanese to attack Pearl Harbor.
Well, you know what? I don't think that has anything to do with what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about
it's the
is
evidence.
The positive side, if there is any positive side of a horrible, terrible, evil tragedy like this, the positive side is that sometimes it takes a little something like this for us to jar our senses and think of us as all just people.
Joe Rogan, though,
and
it's
put
the
aside
track
our
record.
racism and put aside all our pretenses and just sometimes be happy for life.
Joe, here's the question, and really don't dodge it. If we find out Iraq did it, what should we do?
We should bomb them. I'm not going to dodge that at all. If we find out absolutely, positively, without a doubt that someone's guilty, they should die. That's absolutely a fact. I'm all for ridding the world and the United States, for that matter, of people who are evil. If we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone is guilty, I'm all for the death penalty. It's whether or not we can do that that is the real question. And that, I think, is just as much, if not more, of a threat to the liberty of the people of this country.
Joe, do you want to stay with us and take some calls?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. When we come right back, we're going to go to this loaded board of phones. Clayton and everybody else. Stay with us. Well, I know this. The city of Austin buses are being driven by Austin police since last week. They admit they're training to go around and pick up citizens. We have a FEMA command center being built. And, Joe, I have to tell you, you're being particularly aggressive tonight with me, and I have the facts and I have the evidence, and I'm just as big a know-it-all as you are. And we've had the experts on this show, and I'm telling you, we got a corrupt and tyrannical government gobbling up our freedoms like a vacuum cleaner.
Well, I agree that we have lost a lot of freedoms in this country, and I agree that there's a lot of problems with our government. I'm not saying that. I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
Did you hear about the FBI blowing those guys' heads off?
Excuse me?
Hear about the FBI blowing those innocent guys' heads off up in Michigan?
No, I didn't hear about this. This is the pot thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I had read several accounts on the internet saying that the FBI was fired upon. I don't know.
Yeah,
First of all, you know how I feel. I think pot should be legal. It's ridiculous. I think no grown human being should be able to tell another grown human being what they can and can't do if they're not hurting anybody. And the idea that pot, which kills nobody, is hurting somebody is ridiculous.
Well, it's obvious.
Kills 1,000 people a year. Caffeine kills 10,000 people a year. Cigarettes and alcohol, 450,000. Zero from pot. So the idea the government is fair and just and protecting us in every way is pretty ridiculous.
Well, I'm glad we agree on that and the guns. And the guns. Let's take calls. We've got Joe Rogan, the #1 host on TV globally, with us. And I know Joe personally. He's a nice guy, but he's shilling for NBC right now, aren't you, Joe? Let's go ahead and talk to Clayton in Missouri. Clayton, thanks for holding over the last hour and 20 minutes. You're on the air, my friend.
Okay, Alex, while you were talking to Joe, I've been surfing the TV news here, and they are definitely putting the finger on Osama bin Laden. They say that they're looking at the passenger manifest list, and one of the list has a person who they believe is connected to Osama bin Laden. The FBI, they say, is going down to Broward County, Florida, and Daytona Beach, Florida, and they're getting ready to round up folks who are connected to Osama bin Laden.
And like the NSA didn't know they were doing this, and like they could take over these planes with box cutters. I'm sure you've heard that, Joe, that people called in from cell phones on board. They were hijacking it with box cutters.
Yeah, I did hear that. And my comment to that to a friend of mine was, people were like, well, why didn't they fight? Well, they might have been told that all that was going to happen was they were going to bring the plane back to Kennedy Airport. They were going to make a political statement. I mean, we don't know what they told these passengers. They totally lulled them into a false sense of security. They're not going to tell them, hey, we're going to crash into the World Trade Center and kill you.
Yeah, but, Joe,
I'm just saying that a lot of people are actually questioning the courage of the people on board. And until you're in a situation like that, I don't think you could judge.
Well, I've had somebody pull a knife on me. I'm sure you growing up in the East, I'm sure you had a knife pulled on you once or twice.
No, I never had a knife pulled on me. But, that's beside the point. What I'm saying is that we don't know what happened on the plane. I mean, they did hijack the plane with box cutters, but if someone pulls out a box cutter and says, don't worry, nobody has to get hurt, we're just going to bring this plane down to the ground, I don't know.
But what about the pilots, as they were cruising towards that?
I had also heard that the flight attendants had been stabbed. That was one of the things that 911 people... We're not going to know for a couple days now.
I hear you until they get their spin machine. Clayton, thanks for the call. Cindy in West Virginia, you're on the air with Joe Rogan. Go ahead, Cindy. She's been holding forever. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Alex, and hi, Joe. I've been watching this whole thing, and I've got a whole bunch of observations about how this whole thing is going, New World Order. I'm not sure how Joe's going to react to this.
Well, they're on the news announcing, give up your rights, we'll keep you safe.
Okay, I'm going to tell you about 6 or 7 real brief ones. Okay, first of all, they were saying about the terrorism in the airplanes. Now, you've mentioned this, that they want to escalate security and make life like we haven't known it before. And I know for a fact, and I've heard this from another shortwave host, you've got all those metal detectors. Now, if there were knives, box cutters, or even guns, they would have detected them. So this had to be an inside job. They were let on with those.
Yeah, but you've seen the people that work at the airport checking those metal detectors. Those people are too stupid to get a job at Burger King.
Joe, you've been on with us for 55 minutes. We got loaded phone, people that want to talk to you. You going to stay with us longer? Huh, Joe?
Absolutely.
All right, Cindy, stay there. We'll let you finish up. Then Mary, then Daryl, then Jay. Third hour coming up with Joe Rogan. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. Obviously, one of the centuries to be remembered throughout the century, one of the stories to be remembered throughout the century, we have the bombing of both World Trade Center buildings using passenger jetliners. One also crashed into the Pentagon this morning, and the evidence is just flowing out. I'll cover it a little bit later in the show. This is a highly orchestrated, complex action, not carried out by people, as Joe Rogan says, living in a sandbox. Again, I'm Alex Jones, your host. We're talking to Joe Rogan, host of the #1 syndicated show on NBC.
Well, Alex, I didn't say the people who did it live in a sandbox. I was talking about the people of Palestine who believe that the children of today are the holy martyrs of tomorrow.
But you were saying we might need
to sandbox. I did not ever say that.
You were saying we might need to give up some of our liberties, though, because of those dangerous people in that sandbox.
Look, the only liberties I'm talking about are the liberties to safeguard people getting on airplanes. I mean, that's what we were talking about. As far as going through a bigger search to get on an airplane, I'm all for that. You know, I'm all for checking your bags to make sure you don't have any weapons on. I think that's a pretty safe thing.
Yeah, but not on the...
I also think it's a safe thing to protect us by having, you know, perhaps police people on, security people on airplanes.
What about if they bomb a highway? We're going to start checking all the cars on the highway?
Well, you know what? I think there's a bigger difference between a statement that's made, with crashing a plane, which has been done today, and done with, an incredible effect. There's a big difference between that and driving.
Well, the New World Order can bring you something bigger, Joe, if you want. Let's go back to Cindy in West Virginia. Those other points you wanted to make, Cindy, you're on the air.
You know, Alex, I think...
Alex?
Yeah.
Okay, it's Cindy from Wyoming. Okay, already, now, Joe, you may object to my saying this too, but it's a proven fact. They have X-ray machines at those airports that can see you stark naked, so they can see those weapons if they want to. And it's a great infringement of privacy.
Yeah, they have those scanners in at most airports now.
You're right.
I haven't seen them, and I travel every month.
New World Order thing with today.
I haven't seen any of these scanners, and I travel all the time.
Okay,
but I have seen the people working behind the counter at these airports.
Hold on, one at a time.
That security equipment are retarded. They're some of the dumbest human beings. They're people that are too stupid to be luggage carriers, and they're the ones who are watching those monitors. I constantly see them picking their nails, not looking at the screen at all. I see it constantly, and it's infuriating. If you're a frequent traveler like myself, there's nothing creepier than going through a security checkpoint when people aren't paying attention. And
Joe,
Rogan Airport, where two of these flights originated
you love that
from,
word.
is notorious for that.
You love that word, creepy. That's a good word.
Yeah.
Cindy, your other points real quick.
My other points are, Kofi Annan came out and denounced this today, and they're going to have a UN Security Council meeting about it. Now, my speculation
the UN's going to save us.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're going to take whoever it is, Osama bin Laden or whoever it is, they're going to put him under the International Criminal Court, and all the people in the United States of America are going to say, oh, isn't this wonderful? Now, I've got a couple other ones.
Meanwhile, Joe, the criminal court does not allow juries. You can't face your accuser. Double jeopardy is reinstalled. They can hold you for 30 years without a trial. Do you support the UN taking control of our court system?
Well, of course I don't.
Well,
I don't support, any... Look, I don't support the Constitution as it stands right now. I think the Constitution should reflect the will of the people. And because it's a piece of paper that was printed a long time ago, I think there's certain things that our forefathers wanted to put in the Constitution that they didn't. Like they wanted to put a 2% tax ceiling. That it would be 2% would be the highest tax you have to pay. But they didn't put it in there because they could never conceive of it getting that high. There's a lot of things that are in our Constitution. What our Constitution reflects is it should reflect the will of the people. You
could have mobocracy. We need a rule of law in a republic.
Well, what I'm saying is bringing the UN in does not reflect the will of the people. That does not reflect how Americans want to be judged.
Well, the UN's going to try to bask in the light of this as our saviors. I think that's what Cindy's saying. Cindy, thanks for the call. Joe, we got a long segment coming up. The final segment will keep you on. I appreciate all the time. About 15 more minutes. We'll come back and talk to Mary, Daryl, Jay, Dot, and many others that are holding. If you'd like to join us on air from anywhere in the country, you're welcome to do so on the AM and FM, the Internet, and the shortwave by dialing 1-800-259-9231. And the date, 911. Make no mistake, this country and your freedoms are in the crosshairs. People are wringing their hands. Something must be done. And the answer, give up your liberty for security. We need troops on the streets. And I have the mainstream media quotes here from world leaders saying that is exactly what should happen. We have a surprise guest this evening. He's Joe Rogan, host, of course, of the #1 syndicated show right now in all of television, Fear Factor, and my good buddy. We're having a spirited debate here tonight, and Joe is not defending the New World Order. He just simply doesn't think things are as bad as we're covering, probably because he's not here every day, Joe, in the trenches, covering the documents.
This is what I think, Alex. This is my take on you, and you're my friend, and I love you and everything, but this is my take on you. You do a lot of you do yourself a disservice by saying that you're absolutely positive about things that I don't think you are. I think by saying that you know the answer to everything, you make the whole notion ridiculous. the whole notion that you're this guy that uncovers all these conspiracies, you have the exact answer to everything, is pretty ludicrous.
Now, Joe, since you were aggressive, I'm going to counter you.
There's a lot of disinformation. I absolutely agree that. There's a lot of disinformation by our own government, by the media, by all sorts of things. But I don't think you know the answer to all of it.
Okay, Joe, I know this.
You do, and that's where you lose credibility with a lot of intelligent people.
Joe, I know this. Since you're being aggressive, what you're good at is, and these are some of the private arguments we've had. Joe, I'm here to tell you right now that Ritalin clogs more neuroreceptors than cocaine. 70% when cocaine does 50. It's very damaging. It shrinks brains. It expands hearts. It retards the growth in children.
What are you talking about?
And hold on. Let me finish and tell you where I'm going with this. And I've had the neuroscientist, the brain surgeon, on to cover it. I've read about how they're putting cancer viruses in the vaccines across the board. Why cancer is exploding. I've gone right down the line on all of this. We evidence it ad nauseum. So to just sit there and say, I claim I have all the answers, I know gun control's wrong. I know SWAT teams are raiding innocent people's houses. I know the military's hitting whole neighborhoods here in Texas searching for drugs that the government ships in, and that's been proven even in Esquire magazine. I've interviewed former CIA officers that shipped it in. I don't make any of this up. Joe, I have the newscast of Oklahoma City with them bringing the unexploded bombs out of the building. I've had the former head of Air Force weapons development on this show to say that building was blown out, not in. When I'm not making this stuff up, Joe, you just can't admit how far we've slipped down into it, so you're telling me I'm doing a disservice, and it's not true.
I think you're doing yourself a disservice because I think a lot of things that you do are fantastic. I think you've got a huge heart. I think you're a really, really competent guy, and you've got a lot of balls, and that's what this country needs, is someone who will stand in front of Janet Rito and question her on what happened at Waco. I agree with you on that. I agree with you on when you have proof, the way you have conviction, the way you have courage, and you go after it. I think everybody admires that. I think it's a fantastic thing that you do. When I think you lose me is when I think you use something that's based on speculation. You do use something that may or may not be true. You state it as an absolute and a fact when any intelligent person listening knows there's got to be
Joe, I'll tell you this.
Possibilities. And you don't absolutely know the answer to
Joe, your answer, before we go back to these calls, and I appreciate you joining us, Joe Rogan, my answer to that is I have the NSA documents. I've had Bamford on the show. It's confirmed in the news, these are real documents, that the feds were planning to blow up airliners, bomb ships, bomb Washington, to blame it on Cuba for a pretext in
1962.
And Kennedy said no. I've had the historians on.
Right now is still based on speculation.
I didn't say the government did it. I'm saying they're one of the prime suspects that stands to gain. Isn't it interesting that the stock market was crashing on Friday and then on Monday globally, and suddenly the World Financial Center gets bombed?
I know, but see, what you just used as an example, the paper that Bamford talked about, was based on something that was rejected in 1962. It was never instituted.
It was approved by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but Kennedy nixed it.
Okay, whether or not that's true, I don't know. And I've heard a lot of people say that they don't agree with Bamford's book.
So you've heard about it.
His original book, The Puzzle House. Is that what it was called?
Well, the first one in
very controversial takes on that. But again, I haven't.
In '86, it was The Puzzle Palace, and you got a good memory, Joe. And that was before. It wasn't until last year they admitted that Echelon's listening to everything, but it's to keep us safe. Well, it obviously didn't keep us safe.
Well, don't you think that some of these books that people write about, I mean, half of it is propaganda and half of it is real things.
Wait a minute.
A lot of these
James Bamford,
books, like Behold a Pale White Horse. Have you ever read that?
Yeah, a lot of misinformation.
There's a lot of crazy stuff in there about the government's having alien bases on the dark side of the moon. And all this stuff.
Joe, you've fallen for something here. We don't talk about that. We talk about... Okay, let me give you something.
What I'm just saying is there's a lot of books like that.
Joe, what would you do if you found out the UN took over 70% of our landmass, October 18th of 2000?
They took over 70% of our United States landmass?
Yes.
In what way? How did they take over?
You can read the actual treaty at Infowars.com or listen to an interview with Congressman Ron Paul. They signed over the country to the UN, sir.
Well, again, I'd have to read that to comment on it.
Well, I got a Washington Post story from 3 weeks ago under the UN gavel admitting they claim they run our courts and are going to get rid of juries. And the National Bar Association in Chicago Tribune, agrees.
Well, again, I would have to read this, Alex. I really don't know what to
Ask your lawyer if they're talking about that, and then ask him if they're talking about getting rid of attorney-client privilege.
Well, I've heard arguments to that, too, that, people say that it's very difficult to prosecute when, an attorney is with a despicable person that admits to all these things.
Oh, so you've heard about it. The point is, I'm not making any of this up, Joe.
No, I know you're not making that up, but I'm not saying you ever make anything up. What I'm saying is that you state some things as fact that
it's
are not
like you said in front of that crowd of 1,000 people or whatever here in Austin when I was up there on stage with you. You said, Alex, how much of your information is accurate? And I go 110%. None of us are 110%. I try to get it 110% right. And I know we have to have rudders, Joe. We have to have a direction because the New World Order has a direction. And if we don't stand up to them, we're going to get run over by it.
I understand it, but sometimes when you go after something and you go after it, you yourself, as entertainment, you yourself go after it because it's a hot topic. You yourself chase it down, and you may draw a conclusion based on speculation that you will state as fact. There's a lot of different points of view out there and a lot of different things.
Okay, take Kevin Booth.
You've been there, you're going to base, the modern, the popular news like broadcast news, or are you going to use news from other countries? I mean, there's going to be a variety of different reports.
I use it all. I cross-reference it. Look, Joe, what I'm saying.
I know, but I'm saying sometimes they conflict.
Joe, before we go to these calls,
you have to admit that if you weren't there, you don't necessarily know exactly what's going on.
Oh, I agree with that all day, and I say it all the time.
Disinformation in this country. I think it's look. The mere fact that they still insist on saying the single bullet theory is how Kennedy and Connolly both got shot with the same bullet. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. We all know that, but our government still insists on saying that.
But
Joe, we know our government is filled with lies.
Are you saying flying saucers run things?
I'm not saying flying saucers run things, but
you just said we all know a single bullet did it.
I think the U.S. government saying that the single bullet theory is a possibility is admitting
flying saucers conspiracies. Flying saucers conspiracies.
Well, I absolutely believe that the government.
I think it's a little arrogant of you, Joe, to make that conclusion when you don't know the facts. I think you're doing it for entertainment right now.
Well, you know what? I'm just being honest. I'm stating my opinion.
Obviously, that bullet that wasn't even damaged or bent, it would get more damage being shot into water. Didn't do that, didn't turn all those different directions. I agree with you. And I'll say right now, the government blew Kennedy's head off, and we have the proof.
This is all, look at Alex, this is all based on fact. The bullet, we know for a fact that didn't do it. We know for a fact that the government knows that didn't happen.
And we know with Oklahoma City.
Proves to us that they are liars.
All right, see, Joe.
It proves they're liars.
Joe, in an area.
I agree with you.
In an area that you are educated on, you agree with me. Guns, Kennedy. But in other areas, you know what, I'm just going to start emailing you stuff and shipping you stuff daily. How's that sound?
That's what I need, more email.
You only get thousands a day.
Yeah.
No, really, Joe, how about I just start...
Look, I would love to read these things, and if I did, I'd probably go nuts just like you. And
Joe, we're going to break your conditioning.
The internet 24 hours a day and getting my sources from, the Mossad and, the BBC sending me things. Look, you could go into it, forever, ad nauseum.
Let me give you an example, Joe, and then we will go to these calls, and I'm honored to have Joe Rogan, #1 TV host in the country, on the show, and you can count him as a friend. Joe, take our good buddy Kevin Booth, who was the producer for Bill Hicks and the film that that you and he are making, that I've got a small part in. One, I'm dressed up like George Bush in a devil outfit. And that brings us into our next segue. Kevin always goes, "You say Bush was in a devil outfit. You don't," and I know Kevin's putting this on his site, and he's listening right now. "You say Bush was in a devil outfit. You didn't see Bush."
You're talking about the
Bohemian Grove.
Moloch,
yeah.
Oh, God. And
yeah.
I watched that tape, and it's a little sketchy. Whatever they're doing is stupid and goofy. Whether or not it's demonic is questionable.
Oh, yeah, they're worshiping Moloch. Here's the point I'm making.
It looks more like a retarded fraternity initiation.
All right. See, you're conditioned. The point is...
I'm conditioned by retarded fraternities. I should be careful with that.
But, Joe, let me just finish.
They're very crafty.
Let me just finish.
Sometimes they offer you free cookies.
Oh, look, cookies. Cookie.
There you go, bro.
Makes me so mad. Joe,
you better watch it because your audience is going to see the other side of you. Alex Jones. They're going to see that. They're going to see it right now.
Everybody knows I'm a human.
Get too comfortable with me. Go back to your radio personality, please. Go back. Stop being the real Alex Jones. Go back to the fake guy that's on the radio.
Yeah, I'm not a fake guy. I'm worried about my family, Joe.
Hey, I'm worried about mine, too. But
see, you think everybody's
on your
fake.
radio voice, my friend.
So don't sit there and say I'm fake.
About what?
Now, look, the point I'm trying to make here is Kevin says you don't have Bush on tape. It was in CNN that he was there. His limousine pulled in when he was governor.
The meaning of whatever.
And then hold on, let me finish. I don't run up to George Bush, who had me arrested in '98. That was in the newspaper for confronting him.
I saw that tape.
You've seen the footage, okay? See, that's documented too. The point is, I didn't run up to go, Mr. Bush, I like your black devil outfit, your black robe, and stick a camera in his nose. I hid in the woods and shot it. So Kevin goes, you can't prove Bush was there. And I go, well, here's CNN. And, that's his whole argument. So to say it's not documented, it is documented, Joe.
Okay, it is documented that he is there. I agree with you on that. What I don't agree with you in is what it is. I think it's a stupid initiation for some sort of a goofy group they all belong to.
Oh, like Skull and Bones?
The devil is another story. The fact that they all meet and congregate secretly is very scary and very dangerous.
And
I think it smacks of the New World Order. I absolutely believe you in that. But the fact they worship the devil by dressing in stupid robes, I think it's just dumb.
Joe, that's because you're not a sicko and you can't imagine how sick they are. All right, let's take some calls. One more segment, Joe. Callers, be patient. I'm really out of control tonight. All right, I appreciate Joe staying with us so long, but we're just basically jousting back and forth. He doesn't agree that things are as deep and dark and ugly as the evidence clearly shows when you're looking at it daily. With that aside, let's take a few final calls, and we'll let Joe get out of here and get back to business, and we'll continue with your calls in the final 30 minutes of the show. And I got to hit on some of this news and the developments and what it's doing to the economic markets. That's really the story of today and this horrible tragedy with the mass bombings all over the country, the destruction of at least 5 of the different towers of the 7 towers of the World Trade Center, the 2 largest obviously going down, Pentagon being bombed. Let's go to Mary in Oklahoma. You're on the air. Mary, go ahead.
Hello, Alex.
Hello.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that in spite of other reports on shortwave, gasoline is available here in Oklahoma City for like $1.57, $1.59.
Rudge has an AP story on his website saying that it's $4 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Thanks for the call, Mary. I got to jump. Let's go ahead and talk to Daryl in Texas. You're on the air, Daryl, and jump at any time, Joe.
Hello, and I want to say hello to you, Alex, and to Joe. Even though he disagrees, he seems open-minded, well thought out, very articulate.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe, you commented that the people at these airports couldn't hold a job at Burger King, and I guess I would say that I agree with that, but really that's not our fault. And in other words, should I, because the airlines won't hire competent people, should I have to, for example, be watched by a camera from the highway that could see into the bedroom of my house?
Well, I don't necessarily think that's the way to go with it. I think they certainly need to step up security in airport checkpoints, though. When you step through, I think they should have competent professionals who are really diligent and who pay attention and treat it like the important, very significant thing that it is. I mean, it's
but Joe, now they've got infrared cameras that see through your house. They've got sonar
that has
cameras.
nothing to do with the airport checkpoints. That we're talking about right now.
Yeah, but the Defense Department, it all is a package, Joe.
What we're talking about. What I'm saying right now, what I said is the people that work the airport checkpoints are stupid.
Joe?
We need to get smart people in there, and we need to make it much more difficult for somebody.
Joe, hold on a second. Hold on a second. It's a package, and the Defense Department is giving these snooping technologies to police departments, and that's wrong, and it's going to be much easier as a pretext now because of these bombings. Go ahead and finish up there, Daryl. Go ahead.
Well, let me say this. When you speak of terrorism protection, you cannot get 100% unless everyone is in lockdown. And
that's true.
For example, let me say this. You could put forth the idea that you could prevent child abuse if we all had cameras in our house.
Well, you know what, Daryl, that's a good point, and I don't agree with losing any of our liberties, but I don't necessarily think we're losing any liberties to have more competent people work security checkpoints.
Joe,
what nation has the least
Joe, I'm not arguing that.
And that's Israel. And Israel has armed people, armed guards on their planes to keep them from getting hijacked.
Well, they also have armed populations, but here's the point I'm trying to make. In Michigan, where they had some vandalism of bathrooms, they're putting cameras in the bathrooms, Associated Press. Now, come on, that's bad.
That is bad. That is bad. You know what? Vandalism is not a big enough deal to warrant taking away your personal freedom. I absolutely agree.
Nothing is
constitutional. I think it's unethical, and I think it should be removed.
We didn't punish these terrorists before, and that's why this is happening regardless.
Now, this is saying that it's definitely these quote-unquote, these terrorists. We don't know who it is, just like in Oklahoma City we didn't know who it is.
Oh, we all heard it was McVeigh acting alone. The feds won't release the 12
we didn't hear that initially.
surveillance cameras.
The initial reports, they were looking for Islamic fundamentalist terrorists. That was the initial reports out of Oklahoma City.
No, I know. I remember.
Okay, but that's what I'm talking about right now. We're talking about something that happened today, and you're already saying these terrorists, we should have done something to these terrorists. You even said yourself that it could have been European trying to screw up our stock market. We don't know who this is.
Yeah, but when I said that, you laughed.
Really important.
When a lot of the evidence,
it's really important to admit that we don't know yet.
When a lot of the evidence,
what you don't do. That's why I have a problem with you, my friend.
A lot of it aims that direction.
You don't know. But you don't know.
I guess I don't know anything. I'll just sit here.
I'm not saying that. You know a lot.
I'll just sit here as the black ski-masked thugs run over me.
You're saying these terrorists, but we don't know who these terrorists are.
Well, let's just go ahead and give up our rights, and then let's just go ahead and give up our rights and let the UN run everything, and then we'll be all right.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you do yourself.
That's what Henry Kissinger's saying.
And call those conclusions that are based on
That's what Governor Frank Keating is saying, Joe.
That is my one problem with you and your show. Other than that, I think you do a great service.
Is that I don't vacillate.
You're a heroic guy.
I don't vacillate while we're losing our freedoms. Joe, I know you want freedom. I'm going to start.
And I know you do too. I just think in your approach, you are going about it in the wrong way, and you're doing yourself a disservice. I think, is a very intelligent. I think you're a good-hearted guy, and I know you're very courageous, and I know you're trying to do the right thing. I'm just saying, when you draw conclusions based on speculation, and you call those conclusions a fact and say you know, you do yourself and your whole approach a disservice.
Well, I know the government covered up the Oklahoma City bombing, and I know they're brainwashing our kids to turn in mommy and daddy for guns.
I have heard stories that the government covered it up, and I have heard stories that the government didn't want to admit that they had a man inside.
Joe, we gotta go, but I really appreciate you. You take care, bud.